Our lead this hour, though, is from Viva Las Vegas. That is where the Raiders, the post-mortem on the departure of one Davante Adams is the talk. And now, what do you think happens? So Davante Adams is traded to the Jets. So now the buzzards are out circling around the Raider facility there in Henderson, Nevada. And they're like, hey, what can we get? What can we pick away? The boss attempted to put the kibosh on the noise. There has been a growing drumbeat that the other star on the Raiders could be entering the transfer portal. I'm not sure if you've been following along or not, maybe not, but Raiders owner Mark Davis, he's the guy with the funny hair. Mark Davis tried to end the rampant speculation, not just a grassroots movement, but the speculation regarding the future of Maxx Crosby when he told reporters that Maxx Crosby will not be going anywhere. He called the noise not true. That's a quote, not true. Said it's just not happening. It's from the owner's mouth, Mark Davis, who was in the right genetic lottery. He happened to be born to Al, and now he runs the Raiders. So let us discuss the question. For those of you a little slow, the Raiders owner, Mark Davis, has denied that Maxx Crosby trade rumors are based in reality. How much stock do you put in this? I've got Surge, Party City, and Tuxedo. We'll put all these things together and take a helicopter ride. Now, number one. Yeah. So Mark Davis was not very convincing on this side of the microphone. I don't know about where you sit, but on this side, not too convincing. And here's why, right? Maxx Crosby, you'd say, this guy should play for the Raiders his entire career and all that. And, he's got the whole persona. He's got that Raider thing down pat. Like he was born to be a Raider, right out of Central Casting. Right? He's down to the tattoos, the whole thing. But regardless of that, Mark Davis not convincing because just the tone. There's something about the tone. I don't even play it for you. You didn't hear it, but trust me, the vibe I got, the aura from Mark Davis was, well, I'm saying there's a shot here. Everyone's got a price, and if the price is right, we'll make something happen, right? And I do believe no one's untradeable, right? The idea that no one, there's anyone in the NFL that cannot be traded. Well, Mahomes will never be traded and all that, and you say, well, that's the one guy, but everyone else is in play there and all that. But at some point, Mahomes gets a little older and injuries start piling up. It wouldn't be impossible to see a scenario where he ends up getting traded. But in this part of the book, all right, Maxx Crosby, he's 27. So he's based on the average life expectancy of domination as an NFL player, he's got about 5 years or so of sustained success. And so that makes him a bigger commodity, and it's not dynamite, it's dynamic pricing, also known as surge pricing, the surge pricing. So the Raiders could automatically raise their price tag because, hey, the demand is high, there's not a lot available. And if it is true that Tom Brady is going to be meddling with the Raiders, wouldn't Brady want to put his own mark on the Raiders? And that means drafting a whole new crop of players. And the way this works, you don't get full credit if the team turns things around and you did it with the leftover players. You don't get the full amount of credit. And if you're the Lions, though, this is your time. This is your time. And my entire life, the Lions were a joke. And now they're actually relevant. And who knows how long this is going to last. You've got to go for it. You got to go all in. All right? The Lions are in that winning window at this particular point. And if they want Crosby, make the Godfather offer. Who cares? You have draft picks to reinforce and try to win championships and all that stuff, and they're a renewable resource. You can get rid of them. And a lot of people might not know this, but Maxx Crosby was born in Michigan and attended Eastern Michigan. So he's got family there, and I know he spent some time living in Texas as well, but there's some family in the state of Michigan, so there's a chance. Eastern Michigan, local boy comes home, does well. All right, now, page 2 here. staying with the Raiders theme, Antonio Pierce, the head coach of the Raiders, he was asked about the trade of Davante Adams. Did he say, A, we're porked, B, no comment, or C, next man up? All right, the answer, by the way, Antonio Pierce, downplaying the loss of Davante Adams, said, next man up, move on. Is it that simple? Is it that simple? And so I'm nodding my head, yes. I mean, the Raiders have become a bad team. There was a shot early on where they beat the Ravens, and then the game that the whole thing went to hell was to lose to Carolina at home. That is an unforgivable sin. And that was the point of demarcation for the Raiders. That's where they were at the fork of the road, and they gagged up a game. They were at home against a terrible Carolina team and allowed Andy Dalton to tear them up, and now the season's gone to tatters. Just like that. But I'm not in my head. I agree with Antonio Pierce because what is he supposed to do here? Now, it's a serious question. Like, what are you supposed to do? What do you go down to Party City there and get some balloons and you have no other options? You have a pity party? Choo-choo. The choo-choo train keeps moving. And it's a grueling adventure marathon, the NFL season and all that. And Davante Adams was just another disgruntled employee. And so they got rid of him. He didn't want to play there, and he was guilty of embellishing a hamstring injury, it would appear, based on the evidence that we have, to expedite the trade to the Jets. And sure looks that way, considering that he got traded, and now he's going to play in the game on Sunday where he missed the last couple Raider games. Oh, my hammy! The hammy went whammy, but all of a sudden he's good to go. So if you're the Raiders, like, well, somebody else will have an opportunity. One door closes, another one opens up, all these cliches and all that, and somebody will have an opportunity to lead the Raiders in receiving, right? Take the ball from Davante Adams and go on your way, although you do have a turd in Aiden O'Connell throwing you the football for now. All right, final point. We go now to the Berg. We go to the Berg. Why? Because that is where Steeler wide receiver George Pickens continues to feed the content machine for those of us who are in the world of gasbaggery, the wizardry of gasbaggery. So George Pickens spoke on some FS1 show. I don't know what, and they changed the name of all these shows. He was popped up on FS1 this week, George Pickens, and he was talking about slot receivers. So it's not about that. And receivers who can rack up really gaudy fantasy stats, right? Really gaudy fantasy stats. And, well, rather than me tell you what George Pickens said, let's go to the audio tape.
Schematically is the biggest is the biggest thing, in football. That's how you get Amon-Ra, St. Brown's, slot merchants. That's schematically getting fed the ball.
All right. So that's the money quote right there. Slot merchant. Slot. Oh my God, that's so offensive. He called me a slot merchant. Yeah. That's the money quote. So we react to that. George Pickens, the guy with the funny writing on his eye black, says, hey, George Pickens, Amon-Ra St. Brown, slot merchant. What jumps out at you about that quote? What jumps out at you about that quote? All right, so I will go first here because I don't see you. I don't hear you, so I'm going to go first. So Pickens in the cartoon bubble above my head, to the right of my head. Pickens is wearing a tuxedo, and he wants to have a nice dance at the haters' ball, right? But it's bigger than that. This is the green-eyed monster, is what it is. That George Pickens' statistics blow compared to the top receivers in the NFL. And it kills him, right? He's a diva with a capital D, and it drives him insane that he thinks he's better than Amon-Ra St. Brown and all these guys, and yet they have better numbers. And so he's obviously jealous, and he's like, well, he's just a slot merchant and all that. But what he's ultimately saying is he's upset with the offensive coaching staff in Pittsburgh, George Pickens, that he wants to be a slot merchant, that he would like to be the guy that gets all the catches and all that stuff. If it's that easy, why doesn't he do it, right? And why is Pittsburgh not using George Pickens in that way? And you can argue they don't have a quarterback, so it doesn't matter with the two stiffs that they have there, and Russell Wilson, who's likely going to play this weekend, and Justin Fields. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, though, if he's a slot merchant, good for him. You talk about cashing in as a slot merchant. Picked up 77 million dead presidents this past offseason from the Lions, and that's guaranteed money. So the Lions are like, hey, you're stat stuffing and compiling stats and all that, but we like that. We'll pay you a lot of money for that.